Booktube. Welcome to my channel, Simply Laura Lee. If this is your first time here, thanks for stopping by, and I hope you like what you see and hear. And if you're coming back, thanks so much for coming back. I'm so excited that you're here and we can talk about books. So the topic for today is November wrap-up of my book box and November additions to my book collection. I want to start off today with not an actual book, but a gift from my children and my husband. My daughter, I think, is the inspiration behind this gift, and it couldn't be a more perfect gift for me. It's actually an embosser to emboss the front page of all of my books that say, from the collection of Simply Laura Lee. I am so excited about this. This is a dream I've always had, and this gift has already got my brain working, and I know exactly what 2022 is going to be for me. And my New Year's resolution is really to create a curated collection so that I know I want to put my hands in 2022 on every book in my home. I want to know what books I have. I want to know what the books are about, whether I've read them, whether I'm not, who I would recommend them to. It's going to be a huge endeavor, but I am so excited, and I cannot thank my family and especially my sweet Bella for putting this together for me. So I'll be filming a lot of that starting in January, and you can follow along as I put my hands on every book in my home and decide where everything's going to go. I'd love to have every room be a different genre or collection. Who knows? We'll see where it all goes. But that was what I wanted to start with today. On to the actual book additions to my collection for November. So I know if you've watched me before, I've read the Pages and Company middle grade series by Anna James. She's a British writer. One thing you don't know is this book has 4 books. This series has 4 books in it. I had the first 2, which are American editions of Pages and Company, and I'll be talking about one later because it was in my book box. But the 3rd and 4th books I did not own, and I actually ran across a bookstore in London where I could order books 3 and 4 special editions that were signed by Anna James herself. So they finally came, and I'm super excited. They are beautiful copies. They're a little smaller than the American versions, but they are gorgeous. And they're both colored. I don't know if you can see the pages. I love that. And then they have wonderful little collective covers. But look at these. Oh, it's like a little map. Good bookshops are hard to resist. Clues, it has all different little things. Both of them are like that. Beautiful copies, both signed by Anna James. I couldn't be more excited about those. I'm sure one of those will be going into my December book box for me to read on. Oh, Bama's joining us. Also, what else did I get? Oh, I love Ann Patchett. I don't know if you know Ann Patchett. I would think that if you're a book person, you would. She's a pretty prolific writer. She's from the Nashville area, which I am as well. She has a wonderful bookstore in Nashville that I love. And her newest book recently came out, These Precious Days, which is a book of her essays. And I was able to order this from her bookshop and actually had a personal signature put in it. I'm so excited. To Laura Lee, enjoy the days, Ann Patchett. This will probably be going in my book box as well for December because I can't wait to read the essays. I just love her writing. Probably my favorite book of hers was The Dutch House. I loved that. I was so into it. Okay, the next one is a self-improvement, self-realization book that is, I don't really know anything about it other than it's in one of my book clubs. So I went ahead and ordered it, and probably will be reading it in December as well. Sit Down to Rise Up, How Radical Self-Care Can Change the World by Shelly Tygielski, I think is how you say it. So I'll have to let you know more about that when I get into it. And then the last book was a book I ordered after seeing it on Gina Stainer Books. I don't know if you're familiar with her channel. I love her channel, and she has been so sweet to me and welcoming me into the Booktube community. I just adore her. If you haven't seen her Booktube channel, please stop by. I will post something in the link so you can go right to it. But the book, let's get to the book. She shared this book as one of her favorite books. It's called At Home with Books, How Book Lovers Live With and Care for Their Libraries. I gushed over this when she was showing it. It's from the 90s. I found a used copy online, but it's all about different people's libraries and how they house their books and take care of them. This, along with my gift for my daughter, gets me on the right track for January to get my project off the ground and get going. So I'm super excited about that. I'm gonna take a little break because the dog is barking at me, and I'll be back to talk about the book box in just a minute. And welcome back after the Bama break. So it's now time to get to talking about the book box. And I have my book journal so I can make sure I cover everything. And the first book I want to talk about from November is The Conscious Parent. If you've been following me for a little bit, you know I started this a few months ago. I had heard Dr. Shefali talk on a book talk about her other book, The Radical Awakening. That's her newest book, and I'll be talking about that here actually after this one. And I was so interested and intrigued by her, I ordered 2 of her books in book form, and then also I downloaded the audiobook of The Radical Awakening. It's taken me a bit to get through this, and I'll be honest, because there is definitely a lot that brings up emotions. Let me just show you, like this is the reading that I was doing in this. There is so much highlighting, there's notes. I wish I would have read this 20 years ago. It wasn't out 20 years ago, but I wish I would have read it when Dr. Shefali first came out as an author. And she has some really insightful thoughts that will cause you as a parent to question the way you do things and why you do things the way you do. It's a really enlightening and a powerful book. I would definitely give you the warning to be prepared to have emotions brought up. The biggest thing, and I want to write what I wrote as the takeaway from this, the best thing you can do as a parent is to work on yourself and learn when you are coming from a place of ego and shut it down. And know deeply that your children come into this world as they should be, and your job is to nurture and support, not to create in an image of yourself or who you wish them to be. That was my big takeaway from this book. There's a whole lot more in here, and it's definitely worth the time and the effort. I would highly recommend it. The Conscious Parent. So that brings me to the other book that I downloaded on Audible of Dr. Shefali's after I heard her talk to a group that I was in. And that was The Radical Awakening, and I'll put a picture up for you so you can see the cover. The one thing I have learned is I think I am a book for fiction and an audiobook for nonfiction. I think it helps me get through things a lot quicker, and I can take it in and be more thoughtful and make notes outside. So let's talk a little bit about The Radical Awakening. Dr. Shefali, this is her newest book, and she has just gone through a divorce and changed her life completely. So the whole book is really about questioning the way you do things, how many things that we take for granted because we were raised that way of this is normal, this is the way things go. And really it's about teaching yourself to question everything and really dive down into what's important to you and not just follow what culture says is appropriate. I really, really enjoyed this. I enjoyed it, and probably enjoyed is the wrong word. I got a lot out of it. I got so much out of it that I recommended it to my sister, and I actually sent an audiobook to my daughter. And I said, I know it's not going to be an easy listen or something you want to do in the middle of finals for sure, but when you get some free time, give it a listen, take as long as you want. But I think there's some important information that I wish I would have thought about when I was a young woman. And I really, really wanted to pass that along to my daughter. I do have a third book by Dr. Shefali that I will probably add into the book box for next month, because I would like to do a video just on those 3 books and how they interrelate and really talking about the psychology of it. Couldn't recommend her more. Do I take everything she says 100% as golden? Absolutely not. I don't take any nonfiction, self-improvement, self-discovery author as the be-all, end-all. But there are definitely some takeaways from both of these books that really could change your perspective and change how you interact with yourself as well as your family and others. So highly recommend both The Conscious Parent and The Radical Awakening. On to the next book. This was probably one of my favorite books this year. The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue. This is a chunker. I loved every single page of it. This is a phenomenal book. And if you are on Booktube, I'm sure you've seen it. If you're on Bookstagram, you have seen it. It is worth the hype, and it's definitely worth the time. The writing, V.E. Schwab pulls you in, and it's so beautifully written. I had her world, Addie's world, over centuries in my head. It's a great story about a young woman in desperation 300 years ago made a deal, and it changed her never-ending life forever. And it takes her through the centuries and interactions. I don't want to give too much away because it's really, really a great read and a great book to get lost in, and it has some really good messages in it as well. I do want to read you the final takeaway I wrote down for this book. Be careful what you wish for, and words have power. This book brings new meaning to be impeccable with your word. And I'm going to leave you with that and a high recommendation to pick this one up from the library, from your bookstore, wherever, and give it a good read. It'd be a great December read when it gets cozy out there. All right, on to the next one. Next one is another nonfiction book. You Are the Placebo by Dr. Joe Dispenza. I don't know if you're familiar with him. He had a life-altering experience. Years ago, he was in a bicycle accident and basically was told he would never walk again, and recommended he have surgery, and he ended up going a different route and has done a lot of scientific research. This is one of those books this is where I learned that the audiobook is my way to go for a nonfiction. I did make notes in the book, but I listened to it and it made it a lot easier for me to comprehend. So You Are the Placebo basically addresses the idea of a placebo, and that in a scientific study, some people get a medication and some people get a placebo, which is a fake. And it talks about how often the results for the patients with the placebo are just as good and sometimes better than the actual intervention or medication that takes place. I find this fascinating. The book is full of examples. He is definitely a little out there, so some people might not take to him, but I found it really, really interesting, and it really sparked more of a desire to learn more about how our brain functions and how our mind can cause things to change for the good as well as for the bad. It was really an interesting read. It touches on not only psychology, but oh my gosh, I'm drawing a blank all of a sudden, but brain science, epigenetics, how we can actually alter, not really, let's say this, not alter our genes, but alter which genes actually turn on and cause different things to happen in our body. You can't change a gene, but you can have some control over whether that gene, like if someone is predisposed genetically for a disease, that doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to have the disease. And that's what epigenetics is all about, is what causes that gene to turn on and what causes it to stay dormant. Incredible information, lots of studies. It is not a quick, easy read, probably not a good December read, but it talks a lot about your energy and really about how you can control your brain and your body and your ego and where all of these things are coming from. At my age, in my 50s, I'm really interested in learning about what I want to learn about. And brain, chemistry, neuroscience, meditation, epigenetics, all of these things, and psychology are super interesting to me, and I'll probably be reading a lot more of these as they come along. I would highly recommend it, but I would definitely recommend doing it on audiobook, and prepare yourself that there's going to be some things that are really out there, and take it for what it's worth and decide what rings true for you. So You Are the Placebo by Dr. Joe Dispenza. All right, these two books were in my book box. I did not get to them. Not a Happy Family by Shari LaPena and John Banville's April in Spain. I did start this, and the first chapter is from The Mind of a Serial Killer, and I just closed it and said, I really want to read this book, but I don't want to read this book right now. Do you ever have that happen to you? It happens to me a lot. So these two are going to go back on the shelf out of the book box without being read, and I'll come back to them again. December's just not the time for serial killers in my mind. Next book, Pages and Company. If you've been following me, you know I read the first Pages and Company of Tilly and the Book Wanderers, and this is a series of 4 books. If you've been watching this video, you know I just received the final 2 books in this series so far from London, and they were signed by the author. Super excited about that. So this one is about the lost fairy tales. And if you don't know about Tilly, Tilly comes from a family of book wanderers, and she has her feet planted in 2 worlds. She is half fictional and half real. So her mother is a real life person in the story that is the daughter of 2 book wanderers who own a bookshop in London. And Tilly lives with her parents, and in the first story, or grandparents, in the first story, she finds out, that's when she first finds out that she's a book wanderer and she can go in and out of books and into stories. Lots of drama happens. She finds out about herself and about her mother who's been missing, and she helps to rescue her mother. In the second book, her mother is back with her and her grandparents, and she also discovers in the first book her best friend also is a book wanderer. In this book, she and her friend, which they thought Oscar, that's her best friend, Oscar they thought was a book wanderer because of his relationship with Tilly, and in this book we discover that's not why. There's something to Oscar. Tilly and Oscar go for a little trip to Paris to visit Oscar's dad, and also Tilly's able to meet her grandmother, who takes them book shopping. And a lot of drama is happening in the book wanderer world in this book. Holes are happening in the stories. There's plot holes, and actual fairy tales are disappearing. And there's a lot of mystery about why that's happening. Some new characters come in, some old characters come back, and Tilly and Oscar have yet another adventure in and out of stories, some dangerous, but they survive. And it sets us up for the next book in the series, which I will be getting to probably next month. This is a great middle grade novel. It's really, to me, if I was back in the classroom, this would be a fabulous read aloud because there's so much. Anna James touches on so many different topics that are great conversation starters for you and your children. It would definitely, if I had little kids at home, I would be doing, this would be a nightly read aloud so we could discuss it and it would spark lots of good conversations. If I was still in the classroom, I would definitely be reading it to my class every day so that we could talk about it and all of the great mysteries and adventures that Tilly and Oscar go on. Highly recommend as a middle grade novel. So that one's coming out of the box. What's left? Oh, I've got 2 books in here that I have not finished, but I have started both of them. So these are probably going to stay in for next month. Auntie Mame, if you remember, I went online and found an old copy of Auntie Mame after reading The Guncle a few months ago, how much I loved it, and it reminded me how much I loved Rosalind Russell in Auntie Mame. I'm super excited. I just started in this, and I have a feeling it's going to be very different than the 2 movies that were put out, one with Rosalind Russell and the other with Lucille Ball. It was also made into a Broadway play. I've never seen it, so that might be something interesting to look into. But I'm super excited. Think it's gonna be a really fun read. That's definitely staying in the box for December. And then I also started, my quest on all things New Agey at this point. Eckhart Tolle's A New Earth, Awakening Your Life's Purpose. I have the hard copy of this, but I did download the Audible book so that I can listen and follow along and make notes in my hard copy. I think it's going to be very interesting. It is very deep and it is very out there, but I'm really looking forward to finishing it, and I will be telling you about that probably at the end of next month, hopefully. The last things in my book box for November were these great Thanksgiving stories, which I did enjoy on Thanksgiving Day, just a little reminiscent. Arthur's Thanksgiving, one of my favorites, and We Gather Together, Now Please Let Get Lost. It's a really fun little read. Those were enjoyable. So my next video, I will be back with the December book box the December recommendations and my picks from my bookshelf, and then from that I will pick the December book box I'll be sharing with you. And hopefully everyone out there is having a great holiday season and enjoying the weather wherever you are, whether it's warm or cold. And I will talk to you soon. If you like what you see, please subscribe, like down below, comment. Definitely, I would love to know what you think. I'd love to know what you're reading. If you've read any of the books that I'm reading, let me know what you thought of them. How did you feel about them? And also, let me know if there's anything you're going to be reading in December that you are really looking forward to, and it's a great cozy read for December. Let me know. Talk to you soon, and everybody have a great day and stay safe. Bye.